I am continuing in my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am continuing reading in a chronological order, according to event, not according to publication or volume. So I'm skipping around a bit as I move along. We are continuing in the Gospels again. Christ is back up in the Capernaum area. We did read the feeding of the 5,000, and followed by him walking on the water. And then we read a couple of great discourses by Christ. Eating with unwashed hands is not what defiles the body, and Christ is the bread of life. And if we eat his flesh, drink his blood, then we can be saved. Talking about the sacrament. Great discourses. Now we move on. In this one, we are going to read in two Gospels. We're going to read in Matthew and then in Mark. In this video, we have a Joseph Smith translation. Now, what the Joseph Smith translation is, this is a translation or correction done by Joseph Smith to restore those passages that have been lost or corrupted over the years. So first, Matthew chapter 15, verses 21 through 31. Then Jesus went thence, and departed into the coasts of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coasts, and cried unto him, saying, Have mercy on me, O Lord, thou son of David. My daughter is grievously vexed with a devil. But he answered her not a word. And his disciples came and besought him, saying, Send her away, for she crieth after us. But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Then came she and worshipped him, saying, Lord, help me. But he answered and said, It is not meet to take the children's bread, and to cast it to the dogs. And she said, Truth, Lord. Yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from their master's table. Then Jesus answered and said unto her, O woman, great is thy faith. Be it unto thee, even as thou wilt. And her daughter was made whole from that very hour. And Jesus departed from thence, and came nigh unto the Sea of Galilee, and went up into a mountain, and sat down there. And a great multitude came unto him, having with them those that were lame, blind, dumb, maimed, and many others, and cast them down at Jesus' feet, and he healed them. Insomuch that the multitude wondered when they saw the dumb to speak, the maimed to behold, the lame to walk, and the blind to see, and they glorified the God of Israel. So Christ goes to the coast of Tyre and Sidon. This is the Mediterranean coast now. He leaves Galilee, and he's going to the Mediterranean coast. Now there were Jews there, but it is a mixed group. There's not just Jews in this area. And this is a woman of Canaan. The Canaanites, historically at least, were descendants of Ham, and they were of a darker skin. Now, Christ, she comes asking Christ's help, and he just ignores her. But apparently she keeps asking, she keeps making a scene, and the apostles want Christ to send her away. But he said, I am sent to Israel. So she's not an Israelite. She is a Canaanite woman. And Christ saying, it doesn't bother me. I'm not here to tell her anything because she's not an Israelite. Because Christ's mission was to go to Israel and nobody else. But when she kind of gets through the crowd and comes to Christ, falling down at his feet, begging for his help. And what does he tell her? He basically is calling her a dog. It is not meet to give the bread of the children to the dogs. He's saying, I'm here for the children of Israel. They are the chosen people of God. You're just a dog. In this comparison, that's really what Christ is saying. And look at her humility. It is a beautiful story because she doesn't complain. She doesn't get offended at this. She simply says, I know of a truth, Lord. But even the dogs get the crumbs. See this humility. She is saying, I know you're not sent me. I am not an Israelite. I am not of the house of Israel. I am not of the chosen people. But can't you do something? And Christ sees her faith. And even though his ministry is not to go to the Gentiles, not to go to anybody outside the house of Israel, just like the centurion servant, this woman has the humility and the faith, and Christ cannot turn her away because of this. Remember, anyone who comes to God in faith is accepted. And this woman is showing one of the greatest examples of faith and humility in all Scripture. Let us see if the Joseph Smith translation has anything for us. In verse 24, it simply states, he answered, instead of, but he answered and said. And in verse 27, we have a few corrections here. It now says, and she said, Truth, Lord, yet the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table. Simple grammatical corrections. In verse 30 where it says, having with them those that were lame, simplified to having with them some lame, blind, etc. And in verse 31 we have an addition of the word and. So when they saw the dumb to speak and the maimed to be whole. Simple grammatical updates, corrections, possibly clarifications, but nothing significant, I think. So now let us turn to Mark. Mark chapter 7, verses 24 through 37. And from thence he arose and went into the borders of Tyre and Sidon, and entered into an house, and would have no man know it, but he could not be hid. For a certain woman, whose young daughter had an unclean spirit, heard of him, and came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, a Syrophoenician by nation, and she besought him that he would cast forth the devil out of her daughter. But Jesus said unto her, let the children first be filled, for it is not meet to take the children's bread, and to cast it unto the dogs. And she answered and said unto him, Yes, Lord, yet the dogs under the table eat of the children's crumbs. And he said unto her, For this saying, go thy way, the devil is gone out of thy daughter. And when she was come to her house, she found the devil gone out, and her daughter laid upon the bed. And again departing from the coasts of Tyre and Sidon, he came unto the Sea of Galilee through the midst of the coasts of Decapolis. And they bring unto him one that was deaf, and had an impediment in his speech. And they beseech him to put his hand upon him. And he took him aside from the multitude, and put his fingers into his ears, and he spit, and touched his tongue. And looking up to heaven, he sighed, and saith unto him, Ephphatha, that is, be opened. And straightway his ears were opened, and the string of his tongue was loosed. And he spake plain, and he charged them that they should tell no man. But the more he charged them, so much the more a great deal they published it, and were beyond measure astonished, saying, He hath done all things well. He maketh both the deaf to hear, and the dumb to speak. Again we have Mark showing us that Christ is trying to avoid the large crowds. He seems to go down into Tyre and Sidon to find a place to be by himself, where there's nobody around that knows who he is. He wants a little rest and relaxation, R&R. But this one woman finds out who he is and that he's there and goes. And it's the same story that we read in Matthew. I mean, it's told in a somewhat different way. And we are told now that she's definitely not an Israelite. Because remember, one of the 12 apostles is called a Canaanite. And so to be from the Canaan area you're a Canaanite, but she's not. She's a Syro-Phoenician. And the Phoenicians were definitely descendants of Ham. So she is of that line. Mark clarifies that for us. But that's really the only new information we get there. We do, however, get this second miracle of curing the deaf and dumb. Now, Matthew just tells us that he goes back to Galilee and crowds follow him and he's healing all these people. This tells us what happens. He goes back up to Galilee hoping to get in there quietly, but they bring this one person to him. He does heal them. He has compassion, as he always does. Christ never turns anybody away. He heals them all. And he tells them, don't tell anybody, I'm trying to get a little rest here. But they go and tell everybody, and as we read in Matthew, the crowds gather. So this is an interesting healing too, because this isn't every instance of healing in the past. It was just, he said, be healed, and they were healed. This time, he sticks his fingers in their ear, and then spits and puts it on their tongue. It's kind of a performative healing. It's a very weird one too. Not sure why he did any of it, but he does it, and they're healed. So let us take a quick look at the Joseph Smith translation of Mark. We got quite a bit here in verse 24. We have this. And from thence he arose and went into the borders of Tyre and Sidon, and entered into a house, and would that no man should come unto him. But he could not deny them, for he had compassion upon all men. So again, he's hoping not to be dealing with the crowds. He wants his time alone, his rest and relaxation, but he is too compassionate. He can't actually turn anybody away. In verse 25, we remove the word certain, so for a woman. And in verse 27, we do have this. It says now, let the children of the kingdom first be filled. And in verse 28, it says, and she answered and said unto him, Yes, Lord, thou sayest truly, is added in. Interesting. Just minor clarifications, though. Verse 30, we do have a few additions here. And when she had come to her house, she found that the devil had gone out, and her daughter was laid upon the bed. Again, grammatical corrections. In verse 31, coasts is singular now, just coast. In verse 34, saith is changed to said. In verse 36, instead of published it is now published him. So it's not just that they're talking about his miracles, but they're talking about him specifically. The story of the woman of Canaan is a beautiful story. And we see again in Mark that Christ is getting a little bit wearied with people constantly coming to him for healing. He wants some time alone. He wants a little vacation, you might say. Very human of him, as Mark is trying to show us. So we leave that here, and our next reading will again be combined in multiple Gospels. So I will see you there.